A man's brother was badly burned in a fire. 52% of his body engulfed in flames. By some miracle, his face suffered no long-term disfigurement. But the rest of his body bore the brutal evidence of what he'd survived. The scars were extensive, deep, permanent. He was learning to live with them, learning to look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. But here's what made the story extraordinary. During the fire, he had saved his son. While his own body burned, while the pain must have been unbearable, he had gotten his child out. The boy escaped with nothing but singed eyebrows, a minor detail in a story that could have ended in tragedy. The brother was a hero, noble, selfless, the kind of person who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. The recovery process was brutal. Weeks in the burn victim unit. Surgeries, skin grafts, bandage changes that were excruciating. The family rallied around him, sending updates to a family group chat to keep everyone informed. And with those updates came photos. Clinical, raw, unflinching images of what severe burns do to the human body. The photos were not pleasant. In fact, they became downright horrifying as more bandaging was removed. These weren't the kind of images you scrolled past quickly. They were the kind that stayed with you, that invaded your thoughts when you closed your eyes, that transported you right back to the burn unit where you'd waited, hoping your loved one would heal. Then came his birthday. A day meant to celebrate him, to honor his survival, to acknowledge how far he'd come. His mother and his aunt both posted tributes on social media, heartfelt messages about his recovery, about his strength, about what an inspiration he was. But they included a photo. Not just any photo, the most graphic one. A picture of him at his absolute lowest, not even recognizable. His body wrapped in bandages, his skin destroyed, his humanity reduced to a medical case study. It was the kind of image that belonged in a private family chat, not on a public birthday post for the world to see. The man was stunned. He understood what his mother and aunt were trying to do. They wanted to show the journey. They wanted people to see how much his brother had overcome, how miraculous his recovery was. But including that photo felt wrong. Deeply, profoundly wrong. He reached out to both of them privately. He didn't attack. He didn't accuse. He simply said, "I understand you're trying to convey his amazing recovery, but including this photo was in poor taste." Their response was defensive. They said they weren't pleading for money, as if that was the issue. They said they wanted to show how much he'd overcome. They said they would remove the photo at his brother's request, implying that the man's concern didn't matter, only the victims. But here's what they didn't understand. The brother wasn't the only victim of that fire. Everyone who loved him had lived through the trauma too. Everyone who sat in that burn unit, who saw those photos, who watched him fight for his life, they all carried the weight of what had happened. Most people expect a barrage of embarrassing photos on their birthday. Baby pictures, awkward teenage years, unflattering candids. That's the social media birthday tradition, gentle mockery wrapped in love. But this was different. This wasn't an embarrassing yearbook photo or a bad haircut. This was a picture of a man at his most vulnerable, at his most broken, at a moment when he was fighting to survive. It was recent enough that looking at it transported the man right back to the burn victim unit, to the smell of antiseptic, to the sound of machines beeping, to the fear that his brother might not make it. There's a difference between celebrating recovery and exploiting trauma. There's a difference between honoring someone's journey and putting their suffering on display. And the man felt that line had been crossed. He questioned himself. Was he being too sensitive? Was he overreacting? His mother and aunt clearly didn't see the problem. They thought they were being supportive, inspirational even. They thought the photo showed strength. But what about dignity? What about privacy? What about the fact that just because you survived something horrific doesn't mean the most graphic evidence of that survival should be shared with hundreds of people on social media? The brother had saved his son. He had survived burns that covered more than half his body. He was learning to live with scars that would be with him forever. He was a hero, a survivor, an inspiration. But he was also a human being who deserved to have his trauma treated with respect. He deserved to be celebrated on his birthday without the world being reminded of what he looked like at his absolute lowest. He deserved the agency to decide which parts of his story were public and which were private. The man had confronted his mother and aunt not out of judgment, but out of love for his brother, for the family, for the boundary between honoring someone and exposing them. He had simply asked them to consider whether a birthday post was the appropriate place for the most graphic photo of his brother's trauma. Whether showing how far he'd come required starting with an image that stripped away his dignity. Was he wrong for speaking up? Or was he the only one brave enough to say what everyone else was thinking? What do you think about this situation? Was the man wrong to confront his mother and aunt about posting the graphic burn photo? Or was he right to protect his brother's dignity? Where is the line between celebrating recovery and exploiting trauma? Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Like, comment, share, and follow this page for more.